Have you ever felt torn between staying the course in your business and following a new idea that just keeps tugging at you? That's exactly what today's conversation is all about. My guest today is Margot Witteveen, a registered dietitian who built a thriving practice serving midlife women. And she recently felt called to expand into mentoring other practitioners on perimenopausal care. In this episode, we talk about what it looks like to make big shifts in your business with intention, how to know when an idea is truly worth pursuing, and the mindset shift that happens when you go from being the practitioner in your business to being the CEO of it. Margot shares how she trusted her intuition to move forward with a new offer, what she's learned from past mistakes growing her business, and how she's expanding now in a way that feels sustainable, aligned, and deeply needed in the marketplace. If you've ever wondered whether it's time to make a change or maybe just ride out a season of doubt, you're going to love this conversation. So let's dive in. I am so excited to have with us on the show today, Margot Witteveen. Welcome to the Nourish CEO podcast, Margot.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. I was telling you, I've been listening to your episodes, and I always feel like it's a little like I get a little bit of a little drop. I get your voice in my head every single time, and I just love it. So anyway,
Oh,
thank you. I'm happy
I
to be here.
appreciate that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Well, Margot worked with me last year,
Mhm.
and unfortunately, the program that she was in, we had to put a pause on because I had another baby. And so it's really awesome to get to reconnect with you and just hear
Mhm.
about this really exciting evolution of your business that you
Yeah.
are currently in. So, what we're going to talk about today is how to know when it's time to either add something to your business or make a big change to your business. Because we
Mhm.
all know as entrepreneurs, there's moments where we want to burn everything down. There's
Mhm.
moments where we're like, I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. And a lot of times you just have to let those pass. But
Yes.
sometimes there are things that come your way and you're like, actually, this could be a really awesome opportunity. And so,
Mhm.
Margot, I would love to hear from you just so our listeners can
Mhm.
get to know you a little bit better. How did you get into the topic of menopause as your
Mm.
area of expertise as a dietitian?
Oh, I love that question. So I started my private practice. I had worked at a private practice starting in like 2014 or something. I'm trying to remember even. And it was more of an integrative practice. And hormone health had always been the crux in the integrative world. And so I had been really fortunate to have some fantastic mentors and on the job training, if you will, in this hormone health world. And I was working with women that, whether they had PCOS or fertility issues, or if they were going into perimenopause and menopause. And so it was just sort of part of it. It's just what we did. And then when I decided to, and my business partner and I kind of reconnected because we both went to grad school together, we decided we were going to work with women. And all of a sudden, it was like this sort of snowball. It was like I was taking one-on-ones here and there. And then it was saying, "Oh, I heard you know about hormones." And I was like, "Well, that's kind of what we always do. Well, I heard you know about hormones." And it just went in this way. And all of a sudden, we started getting more and more women in that midlife phase. And they were like, "I heard you helped my friend or my friend of my friend." And it just went like that. And it just sort of grew. And what it made me realize, first of all, I just love doing that work. I deeply love doing that work. And it made me realize that there's a lot of women that need help in this space. And it's a well-known fact that medical professionals receive very little training in this phase of life for midlife women. And so that's kind of how we landed into it. I never really set out to do this, and it wasn't, some practitioners get into it because of their own personal struggles, but it was just sort of like, I love this work. I love helping women, and women need this help. And then it sort of just snowballed from there. And now fast forward into 2025, and we're pretty much, that's the only group of women that we work with. We work with midlife women. And we have several practitioners in our private practice. And I just enjoy the work every single day. I don't personally take one-on-ones. And so, as you know, as doing the work, I have that CEO hat on, but I love the training part and I love the mentorship, which I know we're going to talk a little bit more about here shortly. And it just sort of happened. I don't know. I'm really grateful that that path was laid out for me because again, I find it very, very nourishing.
Yeah. And I know when we first started working together, I think it was last year was when we started. I'm like, I feel like
I
time is
know.
all
It's a
over the
time
place.
warp,
I
right?
know, seriously. You had mentioned that you were doing like speaking and maybe some
Uh-huh.
like different things in your business that maybe a traditional dietitian wouldn't normally be exposed to or wouldn't be
Mhm.
thinking about because you just said you don't take one-on-one clients and
Mhm.
that's not a typical
Mhm.
circumstance for a dietitian in a business, right? Like
Mhm.
at least they're doing some one-on-one or they're doing group coaching or something like
Mhm.
that. So, can you tell me a little bit about what your role is in your
Sure.
business as the dietitian who's kind of like the
Yeah.
face of everything?
No, I like that question too. I really think that this identity happened when I started working with you. So I think it was probably like maybe spring of 2024, I think. Again, time warp.
Mhm.
And I used to consider myself a dietitian that owned a business, and now I have that I'm a business owner that happens to be a dietitian. That mindset shift was really important for me, and so I just really stepped out of that role. I started looking at it like, okay, where am I most needed? Where can I have the greatest impact beyond working with somebody in a one-on-one capacity? Where can we really make some moves? Where can we really help people? And where can I have the freedom and the space to do that? Because if I'm only working with one-on-one, I never have an opportunity to have the creative space, if you will, to, okay, does this make sense? Are we really serving our clients the best way that we can? What's marketing looking like? What is the big picture? What are our goals for Q1, Q2, all throughout the year? Do we want to launch something different or do we want to change things up? And I feel like when we get into that one-on-one grind, if you will, and it can be for some, especially if we get really busy and burnt out, we miss that time to kind of think about what do I envision, like what's your vision board for your business? And I just didn't, if I stayed in that, I would be the bottleneck of our progress. And we were having a wait. And also it was like, we now started having a wait list because women wanted to come work with us. And so that's what really, and also working with you is what helped me really say, okay, I need to break out of this role. Like I need to limit this as much as I could. And then I had some great practitioners that joined us where I felt comfortable, where I could sort of pass the baton to them and pass the reins, even though we do regular clinical meetings and we talk about our client, talk about the clients. So that way, we're looking at all things from different angles. But it was a mindset shift. And there is a little bit of a let go with that. And then you were also talking about speaking engagements. I do quite a few of speaking engagements, again, around this space because there's just not there's not a lot of practitioners that really understand the nuances of midlife health for women.
Mhm. Tell me a little bit about the experience of running the business as,
Mhm.
like you said, the business owner versus operating within the business as a dietitian. Because I do think a lot of the people I work with who are
Mhm.
getting to that type of place in their business, they do
Mhm.
have a hard time letting go. They have a hard time hiring other people to do the
Mhm.
client facing work. They do have a hard
Mhm.
time hiring help or hiring a coach to actually, make
Mhm.
the changes in their business.
Yeah.
So, what do you feel like had to happen for you to, first of all, decide that this was even worth
Mhm.
investing time and money into making this change? And then
Mhm.
was there like an identity shift that had to happen for you to actually step into this role and not
Mhm.
kind of like white
Yeah.
knuckle, like hold on to the dietitian hat that I know we get trained very heavily in, like being the dietitian versus being the business owner?
Right. I started seeing glimpses of what our business could be, and I didn't realize how much I actually like business. I think that was a little bit of it. I think it was fortuitous that I just really enjoyed that type of work because if I didn't like thinking about business and because when you start talking about business, it opens up your world. Now you're not just in that dietetics mindset. All of a sudden you're thinking, okay, what does it mean to run a business? What does it mean to have a profitable business? What does it mean to have growth? Not just I'm filling up my calendar. And
Mhm.
I love that kind of stuff. I just thrive in that vision space and that creative space. And so once I started getting glimpses of that and what that could look like, I just kind of went with it. And sure, there's a little bit of fear around letting go and thinking that I had to let go of like, I'm the only one that can do this really well, because that's not true. Like, there's so many of us that can probably do a better job than what I can do actually as a one-on-one practitioner that's also trying to run a business. And so I think I just started seeing glimpses of that. And once I got a little bit of taste of, oh wow, we can do a lot of fun stuff with that, but I have to get out of this role. And so I just felt really confident and sure of myself. I don't know. I had a little bit of fear, but not as much fear as I've talked to other practitioners that are scared to do that. And I get it, but once I saw that pathway kind of lit up, I was like, "Oh, this could be really fun." I just was like, "Business can be fun." It can be. Not
Yeah.
always, but it can be. And that's kind of where I just went, it took off from there.
Yeah. Well, and I find that for a lot of people, trying to do too many different things can be
Mhm.
really difficult to do anything very well. That's actually one of the I would say that's the primary reason I ended up going full time in my business into business
Mhm.
coaching. I
Mhm.
know it's so funny. Like I feel like, and maybe this isn't, hopefully this isn't my audience, but I know a lot of people will say, oh, the only reason why people do business coaching is because you can make more money doing business coaching. I'm
Yeah.
like, well, that's not necessarily true because
Yeah.
I have clients that actually make more money than I do. But all that to say, for me, it was like trying to focus on serving a client with a health
Mhm.
challenge and staying up to date with motivational interviewing and coaching strategies, as well as like all the different functional medicine
Yep.
stuff. And, if you're not niched, then you have to learn like 20,000 different conditions that you're,
Yep.
trying to work with on any given day.
Mhm.
And so that, and then trying to also then be not only learning marketing, but then teaching it, which that
Yes.
changes. I mean, now it changes like every month, but it was still
Oh
changing
gosh.
kind of fast a few
Yes.
years ago. For me, it was like, I can't do both of these as well as I want to.
Right.
And kind of like what you were saying, for me, the business stuff was just more fun.
Mm.
I don't know if that's just a personality thing, if that's
Yeah.
like, I don't really know what it was. I personally love working with entrepreneurs. I love
Mhm.
talking with entrepreneurs. I love these kind of
Yep.
conversations. I love solving problems. I think what I really love about it, and maybe you're the same, I love that when you solve a problem, it's like it opens up new problems to solve.
Yes.
And there's something
Yes.
like really expansive about that.
Uh-huh.
Versus with health, I mean, for better or worse, with health, a lot of times when you fix somebody's health issues, it's like, okay, great. Like, thank
Yep.
you. We're done. Right. Like, I'm
Mhm.
good.
It's
It's
true. It's
amazing.
true.
Yeah. So I just love being able to evolve with my clients and see
Mhm.
like, hey, the problems that we were solving a year ago are like a totally different problem now,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
of the growth that you experienced. So for me,
Mhm.
I think that was the big turning point for me was just
Mhm.
realizing this is way more fun for me to solve these problems
Mhm.
versus solving the health problems, which none of this is like a judgment about which one's better
Right.
or worse. I think it's really
Right.
just like, what do you have the most fun doing? Because
Mhm.
I'm sure you have practitioners in your practice who are like, I don't wanna do any marketing, like, I just wanna
Oh,
show up and
yes.
serve my clients and, like, do a
Uh-huh.
great job with that, and they would be very happy to never open up social
Uh-huh.
media or, like, get on a stage like you're doing, so,
Absolutely.
yeah, so I feel like the people I mean, I don't think you have to be obsessed with business to have a successful business,
Mhm.
financially, but the
Mhm.
people that I see that are going to, like, multi six figures, 7
Mhm.
figures in their business, like, those are the people who they really go all in on being the business owner versus being the
Mhm.
dietitian, like you said.
Yes. Yes. And it can be limitless, and there are issues with it being limitless, but it really you once you kind of start putting, like, I like to put myself in rooms, whether it's virtual or in person. I like to put my rooms with other get myself in a room with other people that own businesses that have nothing to do with wellness. That's where I sometimes learn so much more because, and we don't do any e-commerce, like we don't have any products or anything that we sell, but that's like a whole other thing. Like there's just once you really start looking at what is out there and what has the potential to be, that you can grow your business in a certain way that you never thought possible, it just becomes fun. And I also think I had been working with one-on-ones, whether it was within another practice or my own for a long time. And while I do still like doing I still love that personal interaction with another client. I love seeing them thrive and feeling better. But I just think like it was just time for me to move on. Like it was just
Mhm.
time, and I'm one of those people that I like to try different things. I like to continue to learn and I like to continue to challenge myself. And so
Mhm.
this was just another way. And again, back to the business of the limitless, like it kind of is in some ways.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good segue into what we wanted to talk about
Mhm.
today, which is deciding to make shifts in your business and how to
Mhm.
do that because being that business can feel very limitless and I could do anything. I could do this
Right.
offer. I could work with these people. It's
Mhm.
technically true, right? And I know for me personally that tendency towards what else can I do? What else can we
Mhm.
add? Has gotten me into trouble
Yeah.
sometimes, and even last year, like, I was probably handling it okay. It wasn't awesome to have 2, like,
Mhm.
high-level group programs running at the same time, with the team amount that I had, but when I got pregnant, I was like, "Okay, this is,
Yeah.
like, literally I am going to, like, bleed myself dry trying to do this, and
Yes.
nobody's winning if I keep doing that." So,
Mhm.
I know for me personally, I have a I don't wanna say a bad habit, I think it's just an entrepreneurial habit. I think, we all probably struggle with this where
Uh-huh.
you want to do more, you want to take on new projects, you want to
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I could do that. I could help this person. I could, solve that
Mhm.
problem." And that's where it can start to get really dicey with not only your own personal
Mhm.
physical and mental well-being, but also I even think the success of the business. Like, if
Oh,
you
yeah.
spread yourself way too thin, your business actually can suffer financially as well as you can suffer as the individual trying
Mhm.
to keep 1,000 balls in the air. So,
Mhm.
all of that said, there are times where making a big change is the right move,
Mhm.
and I wanna talk about, like, how do you know? How do you know when it's the time to make a big move in your business to a new project, a new niche, a new offer that
Mhm.
is gonna take like, because 'cause we've built stuff, right? Like, we know how much work building things take. And so it's like, how do you know this is the time to add something or to
Mhm.
take on a new role or take on a new direction? So walk me through the initial exposure or ping or whatever it was that
Mhm.
started your thoughts around supporting other practitioners in the topic of menopause?
Yeah. I I think that yeah, I'm even trying to like, how do I verbalize this? It was interesting as I started reflecting on it when most practitioners, well, let me just kind of start at the beginning. When we did start to hire other practitioners to join, they were all very interested in this and said, I don't know where I can get more training because it doesn't exist, or I don't know if I can trust the training, all of that. Like I need to know that whoever's training me is going to be giving me the right tools. And so it kind of started that way. And I was like, this is great. I'd love to help you. I was fortunate to have had that time in another private practice where it was just sort of part of what we did. And so that's sort of where it went, but it never really, again, it didn't absorb in my brain. It was more like, oh, I can't see these many one-on-one. Like we need, more practitioners. It never dawned on me like, oh, this people are seeking training. And then it just sort of kind of kept over the past couple years that just I kept getting more of that conversation. Where do you get your training? Where can I learn? Can you help me kind of thing? And it just kind of kept going. And then earlier this year in January actually and specifically, I started actually getting DMs about it. Hey, I've heard you on a podcast or I love your content. I want to learn more from you. And these were specifically dietitians at this time. And then I thought, okay, there's a need for this potentially. And also, if I don't want to get too much on my soapbox about menopausal health and midlife health, but we don't have enough people in the world as it stands that are trained to understand the nuances of midlife. And I'm sort of on a mission to help that too, that cause. And that's just my own personal mission. So I thought, if I want to make a small dent into helping women in this time of our life, and we want to give them the right tools and that I know that they're being told things that are, not just scientifically found, but also that it's not just, Brad the trainer telling them to do what I don't know. It's like this is such a nuance and I was like this is another opportunity where we can help others because there isn't enough of us and they're going to need more help. Like there's just not enough of us in this space. And so then I thought, okay, well what does that look like? And where, back to that limitless thing, it's I need to make sure that I was protecting myself. I'm protecting my energy, that I'm not only my business owner, but I have a family. And so I needed to make sure, okay, do I have the capacity? Because to your point, sure, we can do whatever. But then what could potentially suffer? And I just didn't really I wanted to really make sure that I was sure that this is the right move at this time in our business for me to now potentially taking more energy away from the one-on-one side. And then what does that look like? And then also, is there really a need? Like, is there really a need? Yeah, there's a need, but is there really a need to make it more scalable and expansive? And then what does that need look like? And as I was sharing with you earlier, it's mostly been dietitians, but then I've had some nurse practitioners, and now I'm having other people that practice yoga or do Pilates, and I don't know what that looks like either. So this is really sort of evolving. And as I go, so we're sort of in this beta testing of working with a few practitioners that I'm just kind of training them in a small group setting, one-on-one. Like, again, it's not on the website or anything, but I felt like it took, I almost felt like I got hit on the head. Like it just, like, it took me a long time. I was like, oh my gosh, has this been happening this whole time and I didn't even realize it? Like maybe this is something. So how do you know when to make that? I just felt it in my gut. I really listened to my intuition. I really listened to my gut, and I just felt it in my gut that this was the right thing to do. And I know for some people that might not be the answer that they want to hear, but sometimes you just know in your gut when it's the right thing. And that's just what felt right to me.
Mhm. Well, and I think it's important for people to hear because that that question of what's the right thing to do, heavy air quotes,
Hmm.
a lot of the people that I work with, being dietitians and healthcare providers and women and, very intellectual type of women
Yes.
especially, I feel like they want to know what the right answer is
Yeah.
and they want somebody to tell them what the right answer
No.
is. And it's probably partially or maybe very much to do with the way that we're trained as health experts, dietitians. We were kind of chatting about this before we hit record,
Mhm.
where there is this belief, I believe it's a belief, that there's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things.
Mhm.
And somebody else has established what the right way to do it is. And
Mhm.
you better follow what that right way to
Mhm.
do things
Mhm.
is. I've never taken on that belief as a dietitian. That's probably one of the reasons I was able to be as successful as I was as a dietitian
Yeah.
because I was like, I don't agree with that. That's not correct.
Same.
And
Yep.
yeah, and so I do think a lot of the people that are very successful as health experts, they don't have to go like crazy off the rails, but they're
Mhm.
willing to take a stand for things that they think are inaccurate or unhelpful in their
Mhm.
industry or even with the particular type of people that they work with because there's
Mhm.
stuff like the menopausal space. I mean, we know there's almost no research going on with that age
Nothing.
range. So if you're
Nothing.
yeah, and so if you're a dietitian who's like, "Well, I only practice evidence-based,
We'll be
nutrition,"
dead.
before there is any of it, and maybe there never will be. And so that's a great example of something where it's like you have to trust
Mhm.
your own judgment as well as your own experience for working with people when there isn't anything to fall back on. There isn't any like, this is the standard of care for
Yes.
women in menopause. So I feel like with business, it's the same thing. Yes, there's general best practices. Yes,
Right.
there's things that are helpful to kind of avoid all of the like unnecessary trial and error. But for a lot of business decisions, I do think a lot of it actually comes down to trusting your inner knowing
Mhm.
about what is the right
Mhm.
thing to do. And so it's
Mhm.
funny for me, we get a lot of people who like I have to almost coach them into asking different questions
Mhm.
because they'll say, "Is this right? Does this make
I
sense?" And I'm like,
know.
"Well, what do you mean by that? Like right for who? Right? Like how are we measuring? Is this the
Mhm.
right thing to do? And how will
Mhm.
we know?" So I do think that that's a really important concept for business owners to understand is that there really isn't a right way to do things. I mean, there's like legal stuff that obviously you need to be aware
Mhm.
of. And then there's, basics of human psychology and marketing and all of
Mhm.
that it's
Mhm.
difficult to not follow and be successful. But a lot of times, what you want to do, you kind of have to just trust that, and if it's
Yeah.
wrong, it's okay. Like, You can change
Yes.
stuff.
Yes, I love that you said that because I'm like, this isn't a test. Like, I'm not going to get a grade on this. It's just sort of, and sometimes, I mean, and we've tried different things, not obviously in this capacity. We've tried stuff that just didn't work, and it's okay. The longer I do this, and I think the more, where you are in your entrepreneurship journey, if you've been at it for 10 years, 2 years, whatever, you start to realize that things that you have to just try stuff and be okay with failing. I mean, you
Mhm.
just have to. And that's just part of it. You're not going to get, you're not going to get a bad grade, you're not going to fail. It's just like, okay, that didn't work. And then what can you learn from it? That didn't
Mhm.
work, you know. And then it's also sometimes realizing, am I forcing something to work that maybe shouldn't, and that's, and it does take a little bit of gut. Like, you have to listen to yourself. Like, what is your gut telling you? What's your intuition? And we have an access to a fire hose of information. I mean, and so sure, we could put something out there that's like, would this work, or chat GPT it, what are the chances of this actually working? And that information is there, and you just sometimes you just have to go with your gut. And I truly believe like that. And the longer I do this, the more that I realize it. But one of the things that I'm taking with it, with this decision to move more into this menopause mentorship program, is that I'm taking the lessons learned. And that's what I really love, and which makes me a little bit more excited about this time around, is that I hopefully the mistakes will be a little bit less, as far as what does the platform and advertising and all the things that we're doing. Hopefully that the mistakes are less, is what I'm keeping my fingers crossed for. But it is sometimes you just have to it's a leap of faith. Sometimes it's just a leap of faith. I don't know what else to say.
Mhm. What are some of the lessons that you're bringing from your client, like your health client business,
Mhm.
into this process of creating a new offer? Because I know you mentioned, I think before we hit record, that you're
Mhm.
moving slowly. I mean, I don't think it sounds like you're just like dragging your feet, but you're
Mhm.
moving with intention. You're,
Mhm.
making sure that you're not getting ahead of yourself with offering things that you can't fulfill on, or
Right.
saying yes to types of clients that maybe, oh, shoot, I actually don't feel like I'm the best fit
Mhm.
to serve this person. So making intentional decisions. But what are some of those lessons that you did maybe have to learn either the hard way
Yeah.
or by investing in support for the other
Mhm.
business, that you're able to then like speed up the process in
Mhm.
this new venture?
Right. It's a couple of things, is making sure that we have the right practitioner, that they are willing to put in the energy, because this is now kind of extra training for them, if you will. I mean, this isn't a certification. I don't have anything like that, but it is they have to be able to make space for this outside of what they're already doing. So there's a little bit of that. Okay, do you have the space to do this? Do you have the energy, the time, the willingness to carve out the space to learn about X, Y, and Z, or menopause health? So there's that, making sure that we have the right client. And that is something that one of the things that I learned with working with you is making sure that our messaging is speaking to our right client. So we're continuing to refine, what does that messaging look like? And then initially, I would have kind of back to, people reaching out to me, people sending me DMs. And initially, they would say they were interested. And then when I'd circle back, it was like, oh, I don't have time for that, or and that happens. That's okay. I get that. But then it's like, okay, who's really interested in learning? So then it was sort of narrowing that down, and I using their language, like, why would you want this training? What do you think it could offer you? How could it add value to what you're already doing? And, it could just be like, well, I'm working with this population, and I don't know how to help them. So it's going to help me invest in myself and my business. And then hopefully I will be able to help my clients. So that's one of them. Also, one of the big ones is not building something until you sell it. Like, I'm not going to build this entire program until I know exactly what people are wanting. Like, how clinical do we want to get? Like, do we want to really get very granular? Because I can do that. I have no problem doing that. Or do we want sort of like big picture, just something that, like, I can attend like a monthly meeting on? So also trying to figure out what do people want. And then for me, also looking at my capacity. What do I have available to myself? Because as I said earlier, it is going to take away from the other business. So making sure those systems are solid, making sure we have automations, because if this is going to take space for me to create and build, making sure I have that so the other business doesn't fail. And so those are some of the lessons learned that I'm trying to input into this new sort of, shift, if you will, or new way of things that we're doing with our business.
Hmm. I love that you mentioned the fact that not everybody who expresses interest
Mhm.
is actually a right fit. That's something
Mhm.
that I've actually been adding more stuff around that to our MBA program because I don't know if it's gotten worse or if it's just maybe it's gotten worse. I don't know. I think people are
Yeah.
so distracted. There's so many options.
Oh gosh,
There's
I
all the
know.
information overload. Now there's all the AI stuff. And I feel like
Mhm.
it's easier than ever for people to say they want something, but then not actually take it seriously.
Mhm.
And whether you're working with practitioners or business owners
Mhm.
like we are, or you're
Mhm.
working with clients that have a health challenge or whatever you're doing to serve people and help them get a result, and you're not just, like, doing it for them because that's kind of a different it's a
Mhm.
different, type of offer where it's like, "Yeah, I'll come, like, fix your car for you. You don't have to do anything, just pay me," right? And
Yep.
so when you sell a service that is more of a coaching, consulting, educating, helping them create the result for themselves, then you get a lot of those people who are very vocal about, "Yes, this sounds great. This sounds so interesting. Like, I love what you're
Mhm.
doing. I love, everything that you
Mhm.
talk about." They're very engaged on social media,
Mhm.
and I'm not saying this is everybody,
Mhm.
but I think it's getting more this way where people that are super, super vocal and engaged and sending 15 DMs about something seem like more often than not, they're actually not buyers.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I've seen that shift for myself, and so it's one of these it can be a little bit of a tough line to walk because I don't ever want to write somebody off,
Mhm.
but you do start to see patterns, right? And so if somebody sends 25 questions about your offer, and it's like, okay, you're still not
Yeah.
actually in decision mode here, that starts to indicate to me like, okay, this is something that you haven't decided is worth it to you
Mhm.
at this point.
Mhm.
And that was something for me I had to really kind of like wrap my brain around this past year or two, was this idea
Mhm.
that somebody could act very strongly like, "Oh my gosh, this is exactly what I'm looking for. This is
Mhm.
perfect. This is like everything I've been wanting." And then when
Mhm.
it goes to the actual pull the trigger,
Mhm.
invest the money, invest the time, all of
Mhm.
that, it's like, not right now, or, oh, there's this one thing that I asked a question about that is
Yeah.
no longer like a perfect fit for me, so I'm out.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
it can be frustrating because it's like, how valuable what you offer is,
Mhm. Mhm.
and you don't want to withhold information from people. But I do find that the people who, for us, that buy the fastest, that spends like, usually they'll pay in full, or they'll like, there's
Mhm.
no question about the money piece. It's like they just come out of nowhere. I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
know where you found me or like how you know about me, or what, you just were like, "Oh, applied. Here I am. Yay." It's like, okay, awesome. And so I have found that that's just becoming more of a thing now. And I
Mhm.
I do feel like there's just been a split of people who either can make those decisions for themselves, and this isn't just
Mhm.
in the business world, like, this is also just people in general. There's
Mhm.
people who it's like when they see what they want and they're like, "That's what I'm looking for," they move forward, and it's not this,
Mhm.
like, like, arm twisting, dragging them across the
Mhm.
finish line. And then there's more people who there is so much more to interact with, and they spend their time and energy interacting versus
Right.
doing the thing that they wanna do. And so, I would imagine you would have the same experience in your business where the people who actually do move forward to invest with you, you might not even have ever had a conversation with them, and
Yeah.
you put something out on social media like, "Hey, I got this thing that we're doing," and they're just like, "This sounds great. Where do I where do
Yes.
I sign up?"
Yes. Yes, I'm having the same experience, and I I you know, we're shifting so fast with the way we consume information, and I know you talked about it on your podcast before. that I I don't even know I don't even have a word for what is happening with our brains and dopamine hits and the way we decide to buy. I also just feel there's just a deluge of things to buy. Again, we could even just like not even talking about our own businesses, but just in general, like the advertisement, just all of that. So I'm not sure what's happening in our brains right now with that. And also, then second to that, or another point to make about it is I think people romanticize stuff, "Oh, this is great. I'm gonna do that." And then it's like when you really put it down, like, "Oh, this is gonna require the energy. This is what's gonna require of me, to put in." If I agree, when I signed on with your program, I had to say, "Okay, I'm investing in myself. I'm investing in our business, and there is gonna be work. There is work required." And am I willing to do that work? And I'm not saying that people who don't buy it's because they don't wanna do the work. That's not what it but you do kinda have to have that honest conversation with yourself. Like, this isn't yes, I'm investing in myself and I'm doing this, but I also have to be able to put in that work. And sometimes I think it's like, maybe you bit off more than you could chew, or you thought it was this, or you've romanticized it's gonna be X, Y, and Z. And or maybe there's just fear around things. I'm not sure. But to your point, I've had people that I've never heard before that are part of our group. And then I've had people that were very engaged emailing. We had several conversations, DM, and it was just like, nope, that was it. So I don't know yet what that means or what that looks like, if this is a trend, if this is just here and now. I have no idea.
Mhm. Well, and I do think with the messaging piece that you mentioned,
Mhm.
needing to really nail that and, spend the time and energy to get clear on that before you start
Mhm.
getting out there and trying to sell something, that I do think can be a great kind of sifter,
Yeah.
right? Because a lot of people they want to they they ask their audience or they think about, well, the people that are engaging, the people that are
Mhm.
commenting, the people that are DMing, this is what they're asking for.
Mhm.
And so I'm gonna give it to them because again, it's kinda going back to that, like,
Yep.
like wanting other people to tell you what to do, right? "Oh,
Yes.
my people are DMing me saying they want XYZ," whether it's meal plans or I wanna learn how to work with menopausal clients, but, oh,
Mhm.
not like that, right? But
Right.
yeah,
Right.
but having the discernment to not just go like face first
Mhm.
into, well, the people DMing me are saying this, so I better do this. And
Mhm.
I think to your point before of moving slowly and really being thoughtful about what are you creating and thinking, is a yoga teacher actually a good fit for this? And you're not just creating it because the yoga teacher said, I'm interested, right? It's like you're
Mhm.
really making decisions
Mhm.
thoughtfully about what you want to create. And I do feel like that's an important, I think it's always been important, but I think nowadays it's, you almost can't run a successful business without the ability to filter and the ability to make those decisions even in
Mhm.
spite of what people are asking for,
Mhm.
because it can be this like wild goose chase where you go off and you create all the stuff that people are asking for and
Mhm.
either they don't use it or they don't actually buy it and you're just like, why did I just spend all
I
that
know.
time creating this stuff that now nobody wants or now they're not
Mhm.
using? And so having the wisdom to make that choice for what you know is best,
Mhm.
even if you're not getting the like obvious external validation
Mhm.
from it. So have you had that experience with creating this particular, even just in the beta version, like have you had to
Yeah.
kind of navigate that?
Not really. I know exactly what you're speaking to. I'm pretty confident in what I'm gonna offer. And and it might come with age. I mean, I am in that perimenopausal group, I'm 47, so the older you get, the more you kinda stand in your power, if you will, and I just feel that I'm like, "No, this is it." Like,
Yeah.
this is what we're doing, and this is how it works. Like, I have over 10 years experience of working with women in this population, and I have a pretty good idea of what we're gonna do and what we're gonna offer and what
Mhm.
works and what doesn't work. And so I'm okay with that decision. I'm okay with putting boundaries. I'm okay saying, no, we're not gonna run it this way. So I haven't run into that fortunately. And if I do, again, I'm just gonna say, "No."
Yeah. I think that that's really, maybe partially age. I think you're also the
Yeah.
kind of person who strikes me as just more comfortable with setting boundaries. It's probably a combination of both, but
Mhm.
that is something where a lot of the younger, newer business owners we work with, and I struggle with it too sometimes. I mean, I'm late 30s and I'm like, okay, when I'm in my 40s, maybe that's when I'll finally be
Uh-huh.
like fully boundaried and, not either that or I'm having more children. One of those two things would
Yes.
like just knock any sort of boundaries issues out of me. But it sounds to me like you're it's not even in your consciousness to
No.
change what you wanna do based on what people
Mm-mm.
are asking
No.
from you.
And that's not to say that if I have a blind spot, like I'm very open to change and recommendations and saying, "Hey, I have my own blind spots." But because I feel pretty comfortable or not comfortable, I'm very confident in working, and it's partly because I am that woman. I am probably my own client. I know who we're working with. And so because of that and the success that we've had with our clients, that's why I feel comfortable and maybe saying no or putting in those boundaries or not, like you were saying, just create any single thing that maybe just one person suggests. And so and you have to have that in your business, because are you running your business or is your business running you? And so, back even earlier when we were talking about like the business is great because it can be limitless, but you still have to know when to say no and oh, and you have to know when it's okay to open up to other ways of doing it. So not to make I certainly don't want to come across like I'm closed off, but I mean, there's a little bit of age. I do have the confidence. I know what we're doing works. And I'm very confident in the training and what we're doing and then if I see a trend, like I'm getting multiple, as we do this more, of course, we're not there yet, but as we start doing more and we start training more practitioners, and I start seeing this trend, like, oh, you know what? They actually could use a little bit more help around the HRT conversation or the whatever. Then, yeah, let's bring that in. Let's have that. Let's do more training around this. But you have to just, gosh, I just go with my gut a lot. And I'm fine with saying no if it just doesn't make sense. And, we can't be all things for everybody.
Mhm. It sounds like you're doing a really great job of setting boundaries where it matters and then having flexibility for
Hmm.
adjusting for things that either don't matter as much or are just keeping up with changes because the world
Yeah.
changes, right? Maybe there's a new medication that comes out, or maybe
Hmm.
there's, just new research that is shared that, okay, now we
Hmm.
actually can use that information to change what we do. So I don't think you certainly don't have to be rigid in the sense that this is the only way to do it. This is the
Right.
only, and just kind of expand on that. Also, not being willing to listen to your clients or your
Hmm.
customers because I find that there tends to be a dichotomy where people are either so locked in on what their customers are asking for that they just like they don't even know what they want to provide. They don't know what's even
Yeah.
good for them. They don't know
Hmm.
they can't make decisions or boundaries around that stuff for themselves because they're so at the mercy of the
Yeah.
winds of like, well, somebody DM me this or, my
Hmm.
client said that or, somebody wasn't happy with me, so I better change everything that I'm doing. And then you can swing in the other direction, which I don't think this is the people I work with, but I know that there are people like this where they're just so wrapped up in their own ego that
Yeah.
they don't really care if people are having trouble
Hmm.
or not, having the best experience. They'll be like, "Well, that's a you problem," right? Like they don't
Yes.
actually want to get feedback. So
Hmm.
to me it's a balance of finding your leadership where you can lead from a place of I know this is what works. This is, I'm
Hmm.
not going to just change it because people are asking me to
Hmm.
change it. And this is what I'm very confident in. And I also want to serve my clients and customers to the best possible ability.
Yep.
And if they're asking for something and there's patterns and there's, trends that I'm seeing with people struggling or, things that they might
Hmm.
need, I want to be responsive to that. So I feel like
Hmm.
finding that leadership role as a business owner an educator, a coach, whatever you're doing
Yeah.
to serve people really does have that balance of confidence in what you know to be true, and then
Mhm.
willingness to be open to making adjustments as necessary.
Mhm. And that's again back to that I just having that marriage of those 2 or that, like, Venn diagram where it kinda you have that, like, crossover is so important to running a business, to leadership, is knowing when to listen and then knowing when it just doesn't work for your business. And again, not a right or wrong. There's not a I can't tell you, like, I can't say, if it checks this box, then you listen. If it checks this box over here, then you don't listen. I mean, again, it just comes to knowing your business, knowing how you want to work, but still being open and listening to your client, practitioner, whoever that is, and having that space to do that. Because
Yeah.
there was one thing that when I was working with the initial group that I just had started with, like, in early spring or late spring, that I didn't include something, and I was like, "Oh, you know what? Like, this does make sense." Like, because we do have our blind spots. So it's like, "Oh, yeah." Because it's all also when you know your work so well, you sometimes don't know what somebody you just make these assumptions. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I can't assume this." So
Mhm.
being open to that and just being able to make those changes within how you're delivering the information. And I always look at our business as, it is a living organism. It moves, it changes, it grows, it shrinks, hopefully more growth than shrinking, but I look at it that way. I look at it as this, like, living organism that we have to feed, we have to nourish, and it's going to change. And I just have to kind of go with that on sometimes.
Mhm. Well, and I know the other thing people don't like to hear is that a lot of that wisdom and ability to make decisions with your gut or your intuition
Mhm.
even comes from having had failures and mistakes that
Oh,
you've made in the
mhm.
past, which nobody
No,
wants to learn that way,
no,
but
no. You learn so much from your failures. I mean, you just do. It's hard. They can be gut wrenching. They can get to, straight in the heart. I mean, I think you have that famous story that, like, you built this program and you spent all this time and nobody bought. I mean, I get that because I've had that experience, and that gets you in the gut, and it makes you question all of these things and these decisions that you made, but you learn so much from it. And it is a cliche, but you do learn from those failures. And because I've had all these failures leading up to this, now I'm like, okay, I can take that experience and I can take that wisdom and I can take the coaching that I've had with Laura and all of these things. And it's kind of making this nice little soup, if you will. And now I can really apply it and hopefully really be successful at something else that not only can help other practitioners and their own, in their skill set, but then eventually it can help women down the road. And so you do learn a lot from your failures, as much as we don't want to do it. You just do.
mhm.
It's just a fact
Well,
of life.
yeah. Well, I'm really excited to see what you create. I know it's in the somewhat infancy stage
Yes.
and there's a lot of decisions being made and working with people at a very close level so that you
Uh-huh.
can discover, what is the best way to do this and what do
Mhm.
people want and all of that. If our listeners are intrigued and want to hear more about how they can potentially work with you to learn more
Uh-huh.
about the menopausal, you know,
Right.
I don't know even what
Mentorship.
know.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know either.
Well,
Menopausal mentorship.
yeah,
Yeah.
just being able to work with that age range, which
Yeah.
I am very confident is a growing niche. If you wanna get into a growing niche of
Oh,
women who
yeah.
are very tech savvy and are wanting to spend money on
Mhm.
themselves, like, this is a great niche to be in. So, how can people
Mhm.
connect with you to learn more about this particular bubbling offer that you're
Yes.
creating?
So 2 ways. You can email us at info@perfectlyportionedwellness.com, or you can just send me a DM at perfectlyportionedwellness__spore. And I can if I need to share that with you to put in the show notes, I'm happy to do that. And so those are the 2 ways right now. I do anticipate 2026 to have more of a formal way of signing up to talking to me, having a call. But right now it's just a little bit informal, and so far we've got about 10 that we're working with. And so we'll see if that gets bigger, if I want to keep it small, just, all the questions that we have as a business owner. But even if, I I do think if you want to move into this phase of working with this population, you do need to have some training. You need to
Mhm.
have, whether it's not me, if it's somebody else, that you have to have it, because we cannot, oh my gosh, I could just go on, but we don't have the tools. Practitioners just don't have the tools. Medical professionals don't have the tools. And so
Mhm.
it's really important that you have that. And I feel very strongly about it.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm super excited to see how this
Thank
grows
you.
and what it becomes because there's
Yes.
so many opportunities for you. And I really appreciate your sharing your experience on the show and just walking through the decision making process, which ultimately came down to trusting your gut on making
I
that decision.
know.
So
I
I'm
know.
excited to see what you create.
Yes. Thank you, Laura. And thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for all your work as well.
Yeah, of course. Well, thanks for all of you hanging out with us on the show today. We'll see you next week on the Nurse CEO podcast. Bye, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Nourished CEO podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation and it brought you value, I would be so grateful if you would take a minute to leave a review over on iTunes. Your feedback not only helps more amazing coaches and practitioners like you find the show, it also helps me keep creating the kind of content that you want more of. Just head over to Apple Podcasts, search for the Nourished CEO podcast, scroll down, and tap that write a review button. It only takes a minute and it means the world to me. Thanks again for being here, and I'll catch you on the next episode.